Hello, listeners, and welcome to the fourth episode in a series of podcasts on the topic Equity, Diversity, and Technology, a Caribbean educator's perspective. Remember, if you are in training to become an educator, if you are already an educator, or even if you just have an interest in education, this podcast is for you. Over the next few episodes, we will continue to explore how technology can be used in the classroom to address issues of equity and diversity. Now, just to recap, in our last episode, we turned our attention to exploring how program based technologies, which are those technologies developed specifically for educational use, can help to address issues of equity and diversity in the classroom. More specifically, we explored personalized learning programs which use artificial intelligence and algorithms to match learners to activities specifically based on their learner profiles. We also explored Class Dojo and the role it can play in incorporating the entire family unit as a way of addressing some aspects of equity and diversity. In this episode, we will continue to explore program based technologies and their role in addressing equity and diversity in the classroom. Today, we will explore learning management systems. I hope you enjoy. Turnbull, Locke, and Chu 2019 define a learning management system as a web based software platform that provides an interactive online learning environment and automates the administration, organization, delivery, and reporting of educational content and learner outcomes. Let me tell you a personal story. Please note that the names have been changed to protect the identities of those involved. I used to work at the Barbados branch of a group of schools owned and operated by the Close Brethren religious sect. Zoom video conferencing software and Canvas learning management system were used to connect students and teachers from all over the world. In a typical English class, there were students from across Canada, North America, and the Caribbean who all needed to be prepared to write exams which are specific to each country. To add to this diverse mix, there were also students with varying abilities. Now, this was in stark contrast to what obtains in most Caribbean schools with the practice of streaming students. And Pilgrim et al. 2019 defined streaming as the separation of students into particular groups based on their perceived overall ability. These authors go on to state that streaming causes low self esteem among students who are not academically inclined. So, let me tell you how I use the learning management system to avoid separating students based on ability and based on their country of origin, and essentially to address equity and diversity. The learning management system I utilize is called Canvas. This tool allowed me to prepare a bank of units and assessments. All content was loaded into the system prior to the first day of class. This allowed students to work through the content at their own pace and to have the relevant assessments automatically unlocked as they progress through the course. In addition, there is a feature in Canvas that allowed me to group students and to customize content based on ability and on region so that the content each student was working through was applicable to his or her country of origin and was also specifically geared towards their abilities and disabilities, strengths, and weaknesses. You may say, but isn't this still separation of students? Well, in a way, it is. However, for our synchronous sessions, all students were in the same space, well, the same virtual space, and discussing the same topics and themes. Therefore, there was no obvious or physical separation of students. However, the learning management system allowed me the ability to tackle diversity by creating assignments to address standardized testing in the US and Canada, while simultaneously ensuring that the Caribbean students were prepared to write their CSEC English exams. Essentially, while all students were covering the same topics, these topics needed to be presented in multiple ways so that learning objectives could be met effectively and that each student would be able to appreciate and enjoy the content. The learning management system allowed me to create four groups of students as follows: Caribbean students who are academically inclined, Caribbean students who are not as academically inclined, Canadian students and US students who are academically inclined, and Canadian and US students who are not as academically inclined. I designated these groups as group 1 to 4 in the learning management system and was able to assign course materials to specific groups. The absence of obvious and physical separation meant that all students felt included in the class. However, at the same time, their specific needs were being met. But let me be honest, preparation for this class was gruesome and exceedingly time consuming. So while this mixed level and mixed region class was an awesome experience for the students, I got a clear understanding of what it meant to suffer from teacher burnout. So while it is all well and good to advocate for and execute measures to encourage diversity and equity in the classroom, it is equally as important to ensure that teachers are supported with adequate resources to facilitate this process so that it is not a one man show. For example, in my country, Barbados, teacher assistants and resource teachers are primarily assigned to primary schools, and even in that case, it is mainly to early childhood educators. However, if equity and diversity are to become part and parcel of the educational landscape in Barbados and the wider Caribbean, then the allocation of teacher assistants on a larger scale needs to be a serious consideration. In fact, Jameson and Carthy 2012 have expressed that resource teachers are extremely important where diversity and equity in the classroom are concerned, but state that these resources are the first to disappear because of budget cuts. So, my reality as a Caribbean educator who understands and advocates for addressing equity and diversity in the classroom is one where I am on my own with no additional resources. It is one where I am exhausted. It is one that is not sustainable without the requisite resources. Dear listeners, I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Equity, Diversity, and Technology, a Caribbean educator's perspective. As usual, I will leave you with some food for thought, and today's quote is from Maya Angelou. She states that we allow our ignorance to prevail upon us and make us think we can survive alone, alone in patches, alone in groups, alone in races, even alone in genders. I dare say that perhaps we allow our ignorance to make us think that teachers can survive alone in the diverse classroom. What do you think? Tune in for our next episode as we continue to discuss equity, diversity, and technology. See you next time.